they bring me in, and I'm, meeting with them in their office. The kids aren't there. And in the first few minutes, she calls him an unsympathetic asshole. And he responds by calling her a naked bitch in front of me. And they basically let me know that they don't get along at all. They think it's hopeless. They haven't had sex in 6 months, and every time they try to have sex, it's awful. There's no love, the love is gone. And really the only reason they're together is for the kids. They don't want to put their kids through a divorce. Okay? So we talk for a little bit longer. And then he says something that perked my attention, just like what you said. When you said we had, I think you used the word trauma, a big trauma that happened, and we're still kind of settling in, that really grabbed my attention. What he said was, well, ever since it happened, she completely changed. She became a complete control freak. And so what was it that happened? It was the silence, and she said, well, 7 years ago, I had a stillborn child. I said, have you two ever mourned? And he perked up, he said, let me tell you, you don't mourn. I grew up in the Army. My father was an Army major. I lived in 18 bases in 18 years, and I learned you just get on with life. You just move on. And she looked at me and said, see, he doesn't care. It's okay. And I said, what's your response to what happened? She said, I got two that are still alive. And before that happened, I thought we lived in a safe world. I was this free-willing little hippie girl, and I thought life was wonderful. And then that happened, and now I know terrible things happen to good people. I got two that are still alive, and you bet I'm a mama bear. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure those two kids are safe. And I said, see, she tries to control everything. So then I gave them each empathy. I acknowledged the value of moving on with life. This was before my wife had died. But a good opportunity to share that one. But I acknowledged the value of moving on. I acknowledged the value of safety and wanting to protect my children. So they both felt understood and that I wasn't taking sides, I wasn't making either of them wrong. But then I asked them if they'd ever mourned, and they said no. And so I asked them if they'd be willing to do a practice with me. And I had them sit side by side, so that he was sitting in a chair right next to her. And I had them look, and I sat also on the other side, and we were looking at the wall as though we were looking at a movie screen. And I asked them some questions about their life. I asked them to tell me what it was like when they first got together, when they first fell in love, so that they started to access their memory of what it felt like before, what it felt like before the trauma. They began to remember love, joy, playful. It took a little while, it was like pulling teeth a little bit, but soon they were telling me some stories and they were lightening up. Then I asked how they felt when she was pregnant with their third child. They were both really excited. They wanted to have a big family together. Then I asked how she felt when the baby was still alive. What happens is I go to my cellular memory and kind of remember her response, so that's what goes on tears. Of course, she started to cry. And I really supported it. And by that time, I started to cry with her. So now both she and I are crying. And a beautiful thing happened. He put his arm around her. She put her head in, and he started to weep. And I mean, they both sobbed. They both sobbed. And everything changed. In that holy moment, everything changed. And after a lot of sobbing and crying, I gave them a few more tools. But the main one's just being to understand her strategy was, her need was safety, her strategy was control. His need was moving on with life, efficiency, reliability, responsibility, and his strategy was, don't think about the past, just move forward. No right or wrong. What's important is his value for responsibility, because he's a really responsible guy, and her value for safety. And how can we hold both of those values as important, but use strategies that feel good to both parties? And that's where we went. And the epilogue to the story is they're still very happily married now, because we're friends and stay in touch with them. And they refer to top clients to me, actually. They refer to it that way. And But the really sweet part is she called me a couple days later to schedule another appointment. And she very sheepishly on the phone said, I want to tell you that after you left and we put the kids to bed, we made love. And it was the most beautiful lovemaking I've experienced in years. And that's an important part of the story because emotional intimacy can only take place, I'm sorry, sexual intimacy can only take place when there's emotional intimacy. And sometimes when a trauma happens, we do need to mourn. We need to cry. We need to really access our feelings. We need to create a safe time and a safe container for that, but we need to mourn. And that's the only story like that I tell, but I could spend another hour telling you story after story after story of couples or individuals or families that I've worked with, where I supported that person or that couple or that family to mourn. And tomorrow, I'm going to actually be teaching a practice, and this is not I'm not trying to do a sales pitch for tomorrow. If you can't come tomorrow, tell me and I'll give you a copy of the practice. But that's true for any of you. But tomorrow we're going to do a practice of how to celebrate, how to mourn, how to appreciate, and how to give reassurance. Because those are the four things that if we do those on a consistent basis with our lover, with our husband, with our family, with each other, it's compost, and it makes the garden grow beautifully. It's the essential compost, the essential fertilizer, the essential water, really, for a garden to grow. If we don't water our garden, it withers and dies. You know? And so the tools of celebration and mourning, appreciation and reassurance are the tools in which the garden, we support the garden to grow. I actually have in the other room a little laminated sheet, which looks like, here we go. It looks like this. And it's all about how to celebrate, mourn, appreciate, reassure, and on the other side, how to take timeouts. Because I'm a really big believer in timeouts. I'm noticing people nodding their heads up and down. And if you can come tomorrow night because we're working on all of this. If you can't come, I sell the laminated sheet for $5, and it's worth about $10,000 because it's what will keep your marriage or your relationships happy. It's the best $5 you'll ever spend. Who's interested in timeouts and the value of timeouts?
What kind of timeout?
Oh, how to take timeouts.
Explain.
So, John and Susie are angry and getting triggered, and it's escalating. And what started over, you know, a difference in how to make the pancake has now led to, you know, talk of divorce. That wouldn't happen if they knew how to take timeouts.
See, that's my main thing. If I walk away from the situation, the anger goes away completely. But it's usually, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even me knowing that, I don't.
Okay.
I don't
So
practice it.
So let me talk about how to take connected timeouts. And really, this is huge. Again, it's probably sounding like you've heard it over and over, but there are people who will tell you that this tool saved their marriage. There's a couple in Florida that very specifically, on my website, you'll find the testimonial. We would be divorced if we hadn't learned how to take timeouts from Scott. So it's not me. It's that they learned it and they used it. Okay. So I'm going to describe what's on the back side of the sheet. What I suggest, certainly for a married couple, or anybody that you live with, you as roommates, agree to this practice. And then you can take it and vary it however you like, but here's the practice. The moment anybody begins to feel triggered, the moment you begin to feel that little itch, or a big itch, the moment you feel it, you call yellow light. In a sense, I would have called yellow light as an example when I heard Mike say, talk it to death. That actually would be a yellow light moment, perhaps, depending on the level of trigger for Laura. Yellow light means we slow everything down and we go from our head to our heart. We slow everything down and we go from the judgmental mind to the heart. So if we could use, let's just pretend that you've got triggered by that. Can I use that as an example? So let's say when you heard that, you got triggered enough to what you call yellow light. Yellow light means all talk